Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this special Telecommunicator Week free webinar. We're happy to be here with you, kicking off TC Week and celebrating the achievements of 911 professionals across the country, and giving something back to you with this free webinar and also the one this coming Friday afternoon. Today's webinar, The Importance of Professionalism in the 911 Center, will be presented by Jennifer Kirkland from our Education Advisory Board. And I'm Chris Nussman. I'll be your moderator for the day. I'm NENA's Communications Director, and we'll be getting to as many of your questions as we can towards the end of the presentation today. So if you have questions, please just enter them into the GoToWebinar interface, and we'll be happy to get you the information you need. One other housekeeping note, we are recording this webinar, so if you miss any part of it, want to watch it again, want to share it with colleagues, we want you to get as much out of the presentation as possible. So, you know, check out the archive, like I said, share with the team, and yeah, that's all we have as far as housekeeping. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Jennifer.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you very much for being here, and I'd just like to extend a happy Telecommunications Week to all of you. I'm pretty proud of what we do in this business, and I know you are too, and I want to thank you all very much for everything that you do keeping the nation safe. So I appreciate your contributions. So as Chris said, we'll email you a link to the archive and a PDF of the slide deck. And I look forward to your questions, so please do submit those throughout the process, and we'll get to them at the end. So when we're talking about professionalism, you have to have the obligatory Webster's definition, so I put it in there. The skill, good judgment, and polite behavior that is expected from a person who is trained to do a job well. Also, the conduct, aims, or qualities that characterize or mark a profession or a professional person. Now, those of us who've been in the profession a long time can remember back in the day when we used to be called glorified secretaries or just the person who answers the phone. And sometimes, in some cases, that's still the sentiment, although I think we've come a long way in the 911 industry toward professionalizing our role in public safety telecommunications. However, a lot of us, especially if we're coming into it new or we haven't really been taught what professionalism is, or it's just a word that gets kind of thrown around and you hear it all the time, but you're not quite sure what behavior that actually ensues. So I want to call attention to the skill, first of all. I know I'm preaching to the choir when I talk about how much time and training it takes for us to do our jobs. Good judgment, of course, is a plus and a must. We have to have the good judgment to do what we're doing and to apply any particular skill at any given moment. Polite behavior, I think that we would all agree that that's definitely necessary in a comm center when we spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day with people, and we have to be polite to each other, but also polite to our callers and our responders. So when we're talking about professionalism, that's the basis upon which we'll be using the word today. Also, the conduct or qualities that characterize or mark a profession or professional person. When I think of a 911 telecommunicator, I think of someone who's ready in any sense in any given time to perform the job that is required of them, whether that is CPR, whether that is handling shots fired or an active shooter, or whether it's handling those routine calls every day that people call us for. They think it's an emergency and we know it's not, but we're still going to handle it in a professional way. Note the phrase trained to do a job well. I know that we are all trained to do a job well, but what that looks like in each individual sense is something that we have control over at the personal level, regardless of what kind of training we received at our agencies. So, why public safety communications is different in professionalism? I know a lot of us have heard about customer service in the retail industry, et cetera, And definitely customer service matters in the retail industry, because if people give poor customer service or are unprofessional in those situations, then, you know, their customers take their money elsewhere, and they also get to be pretty active on social media and those kinds of things. Now, you don't really have a choice of who you call when you call 911. It goes to the PSAP that it's routed to, of course, but that gives us even more of a reason to be professional than less, because they don't have a choice, and so we owe it to them to give them the highest possible customer service. It also helps to reduce our liability when we are professional, because the majority of people who sue when it does happen, they sue because they're unhappy because they were treated poorly, not always because of the outcome. And granted, we don't always get control over the outcome of our calls, but we do have control over how we behave and how we treat our callers and how we treat our responders. And that's why public safety communications is different. Because people can't choose, we have a higher responsibility to be as professional and courteous as possible. Of course, we do have that high contact with the public. We are the first responders, and I know that gives everyone a sense of pride to hear, just like it does for me to say. But the fact of the matter is, of course, that we are the first people or the first voice that anyone contacts when they call for help. So not only are we representing our own agencies, we also representing the agencies for whom they are calling. So if someone's calling for the police department, they think that we are the police department, regardless for which PSAP we work. They think that we are the fire department. They think we're the ambulance. They think we're Joe Public City, whoever we answer the phone for. We have more contact with the public than probably any of the professions that we dispatch for, because we talk to everybody, not just the people who need the cops or just the people who need the fire department or the police department. So we are in high contact with the public, and we do have that extra responsibility. As well, the public has high expectations. I know a lot of us are implementing text to 911 at this time. Somebody's done surveys that, you know, when they go out and do surveys on the street for public safety telecommunications, they'll ask, well, do you think you can text 911? And regardless of whether or not the city that they're in has actually implemented text to 911, most people say, yes, you can text to 911. And when they're told that they can't, they're surprised. So the public has very high expectations of public safety telecommunicators, and they expect us to be all-knowing, and they expect us to know exactly what to do in any given situation. And I, for one, appreciate their trust. I like knowing that they trust us to do that, but they also expect us to be kind and courteous regardless of why they're calling. And we owe it to them to meet their expectations. What's at stake? Well, our personal integrity is at stake, and that's, I don't start with that because it's the least important, but probably because it's the most. All of us got into this job because we wanted to help people, and most of us come to work every day. I would say all of us come to work every day wanting to make sure that we do the best job possible. So our personal integrity is at stake. We also have the agency's integrity at stake, and we have the agency's liability. And again, the kinder you are, the less likely it is that people will be angry enough to sue, even if you make a mistake. If you're kind about it and you treat people well and you make them feel taken care of, you reduce your agency's liability and you reduce your own agency or your own personal liability as well. So what are the benefits of professionalism? Why would we do this? We talked a little bit about liability and we talked about personal integrity. But the personal benefits, I like to go home at night knowing that I did the best job possible and I helped people and made a difference in people's lives and in the world, even if it was just for one person. But knowing that having that personal knowledge that you conducted yourself well, that you did a good job, that you represented your agencies well, that's no small thing. You know, that's allows you to go home and sleep well at night or in the daytime if you're working night shifts. That personal benefit is huge. How about your team benefits? I don't know how many of you have worked on a well-oiled team and each person knows their job and is doing it well, and across the room you can hear someone giving EMD instructions and really rocking it, and you're like, yeah, that's great, they're doing really well. If you've had the misfortune to work on a team that isn't working so well, perhaps, then maybe you're cringing when one of your teammates gives less than stellar customer service or behaves in a less than a professional manner. The fact of the matter is that we all work as a team. Even when we're working by ourselves, we're still working with a team of responders. And when you do the utmost you can to be professional and courteous, it benefits your team as well, and it makes you a better team player. Benefits your agency. We talked a little bit about liability, but it also benefits your agency when you make them look good. It has far-reaching implications as far as benefiting your agency. Of course, you want to make a good impression on the public, and you want to make a good impression on your responders. But when it comes time to hire, if your agency is known for professionalism, that helps your agency recruit. If people have heard that you're a good agency to work for and you guys have good team players, and people treat each other well, that helps your agency recruit more team players that are like-minded. And it benefits you in the future. So some of us get into this industry because we want to make a career out of it, and some of us get into the industry and we plan to be here for a little while and then move on to other things. And either way is totally fine. But when you act in a professional manner at your current agency, whether you move on to another agency or you move on to a different career, the professionalism that you learn and display in this career will benefit you no matter what career you work in. And I would argue that 911 training and professionalism is a fantastic training ground for just about any profession you could think of. The ability to work well under pressure, to be courteous under grace, to conduct yourself well. Those are skills that you can take with you anywhere and will be prized by any employer at all. So Professionalism 101. Now 101, of course, means the basics. And if we go through this list and you're thinking, yes, I knew all that, well, that's good. That means that you're already functioning at a basic level of professionalism, and that's fantastic. But for some of us who are just getting into the career, or for some of us who need a reminder, and I'll raise my hand on that, I don't always come to work every day with these things in mind, but I should. It's a good idea to just keep in mind the basics. And dressing appropriately is the first one. So whether or not your agency has a dress code, and I know a lot of us have dress codes, and a lot of us have uniforms, and that's fine. We could debate the merits all day, every day of that. But you want to make sure that you're dressing for the position not only that you have, but the position that you would like to have. So for example, if your agency has no dress code and you get to come to work in shorts and flip-flops and a t-shirt, which is totally fine, make sure that your shorts are pressed and your t-shirts are clean and your shoes are clean and that kind of thing. If you have a uniform, then I encourage you to make sure your uniform is neat and pressed and clean. You have all of your pins and your brass in the appropriate place, and that you wear it with pride. If your agency is somewhere in between, you have a dress code but not uniform, I encourage you to choose your wardrobe with care and think about how you present yourself. The truth of the matter is that we are all judged every day based on how we present ourselves to the world, and the first thing that most people look at is clothing. So we want to make sure that we are dressing appropriately according to our culture, not showing too much skin, and that is a very relative term, but I encourage you to take a look at, Google business casual or business professional or those kinds of things. When you dress appropriately and professionally, you are presenting a message to the world that says, hey, I woke up this morning and I took care with my appearance because I value you and I value the job that we're about to do. Be on time. Again, this is 101. A lot of people get in trouble for not showing up to work on time, and it's something that's easily fixed. When you show up on time, you are communicating in an unspoken way that you appreciate and value other people's time. Those of us working on shift work, of course, you're relieving someone else who might want to go home. If you're not on shift work, showing up on time just communicates that you know your expectations and you can meet those expectations. So that's one of the basic but powerful ways that you can communicate your commitment to your job and to your agency, is being on time. Know your job and your policies and your procedures. So if you were in front of me in a class right now and I asked you to raise your hand if you loved reading your policies and procedures, I would expect no hands to be raised, and that's okay. Reading policies and procedures is definitely not the way I would choose to spend my free time. However, when you're at work and you have downtime, that's not really free time. You're still being paid. So I encourage you to know your policies and procedures, backwards, forwards, upwards, downwards. Not only will it help you be more responsive in your calls, but it's also going to help you out in those pinches when you have something unexpected, or maybe those high priority, low frequency incidents that you don't get every day. Being able to respond quickly to those, or being able to pull up that policy and procedure in a very quick manner and follow along, is a huge sign of professionalism. It means that you care enough about your job to review and practice and know exactly what to do in any situation. If you don't have policies and procedures, then fall back on your training guidelines and your training documents and the notes that you made in your training. But the bottom line is, make sure you know exactly what to do in any given situation. Be a team player. So those of us who work in one-person agencies, or maybe you work the consoles by yourself, you're still a team player. You still are working with a team of police officers, firefighters, EMS personnel, and you do have a team even if they're not sitting in the room next to you. You have someone who's going to come in after you. You have someone who relieved you, or whom you relieved. So you do have a team. Those of us who work in a room with more than one person on a shift, you definitely work as a team, and you know how that is. And team dynamics can be very interesting. But the more you can work to get along with your team, do what's asked of you, maybe do more than what's asked of you, and generally watch out for your teammates as team players and as co-workers, that shows a commitment to your team and a commitment to their well-being and welfare as well. So when you are a team player, that shows professionalism in that you care enough about how well the team behaves to monitor your own behavior and be that team player. Social media, oh my goodness gracious. We all know those stories that you've seen online of people who've gotten fired for social media posts that maybe they shouldn't have made. Some agencies do have social media policies and procedures, and if your agency is one of them, I encourage you to read it and know it. But the bottom line is that our social media behaviors and profiles do have an impact on our work lives. Yes, there is definitely freedom of speech, but there's also common sense. And so I encourage you, if you're striving to be professional in your profession, in your work, to behave on social media. And a general good rule of thumb is don't post anything negative about your agency on social media or anybody else's agency. And keep your comments on social media generally positive. You can suffer consequences for making comments on other people's social media as well, especially as they pertain to work. And this category is pretty broad, so I'm not going to go into specifics, but suffice to say that if you keep your social media comments and content positive, that's a definite sign of professionalism. It shows that you care enough about your agency and your audience to make sure that you're presenting yourself in a positive way. Continuing with 101, use the proper chain of command for your issues. So every agency has a chain of command. Generally, you've got line level, you've got supervisors, and then you've got a director, and maybe one or two levels above that. But I encourage you, as you're building your professional image, to use the proper chain of command for your concerns and your challenges. When you use the chain of command, that means taking your concerns to the proper supervisor, and not taking it around the room and trying to quote unquote stir the pot. If you have concerns that your supervisor didn't address, then you take it up to that person's supervisor. But I promise you that using the proper chain of command raises your professional level because it demonstrates that you understand the proper way to handle challenges and concerns. Don't speak against your agency in public. We talked a little bit about social media, but I'm also referring to training, conferences, when you're out and about in restaurants, that kind of thing. People do listen. I personally had a conversation once in a restaurant where I shouldn't have. We were a bunch of dispatchers out to lunch, and we were talking about calls, and I made a comment about a different agency that I was working with, and somebody in the restaurant knew that agency and knew who I was and called me out on it. And I can tell you very much that was not my proudest moment. So you can learn from my fail and keep in mind that everyone is listening to you, even when they think even when you think they're not. And you want to make sure that when you speak about your agency in public that you're speaking positively. When you're in classes, make sure that you're representing your agency and yourself well and conducting yourself in a positive manner. And speaking of class, when you get to go to training, and I hope that all of you do, I encourage you to wear professional clothing when you go to classes. So going back to the first point in the 101, when you dress professionally in class, you're really representing your agency well. You wear your uniform if you have it. If you don't have a uniform, then I encourage you to dress according to your dress code, just as you were, or just as if you were going to work and being evaluated by your supervisor. This is a very small industry, believe it or not. I know that we have thousands of PSAPs across the nation, but in general, it's a pretty small world. So when you go to class and you meet someone from another agency, chances are you might meet up with that person again somewhere down the line. And it looks really good for you and your agency if you've presented yourself in class in a professional and proper manner. Professionalism 201, so intermediate skills. I encourage you to find a mentor. Nina's actually working on a new resource for us that we can do to find mentors within our profession, even maybe outside our small circle of our agency and surrounding agency. So I encourage you to check out the Nina Mentoring Center at nina.org/mentor. There are lots of mentors that are signed up and ready to help you. I encourage you also to find a mentor in your agency or maybe in a surrounding agency or at your local Nina chapter. Mentors are a huge resource in helping you become more professional. They're going to help you with your skills on the job. They're going to help you with maybe advancement skills and the knowledge needed to maybe advance in our profession. They'll also help you with their skills and abilities and experience. Just like I shared that extremely embarrassing story with you just now about the restaurant, your mentors have gone through a lot of experiences as well. Some are good and some are not so good, and they've learned constructive feedback from them. But either way, a mentor is going to be able to share with you their experiences and their knowledge, and so you don't always have to learn everything the hard way. So I encourage you to find a mentor. I encourage you to volunteer for extra projects in your center, especially if you're looking to promote. But even if you're not looking to promote and you just want to be more professional, there are probably tons of projects at your agency that need working on. And if there aren't and you have an idea for a project, then I encourage you to bring that through your chain of command and start working on that. There's very little that promotes your professionalism beyond coming up with an idea or working on someone else's idea and helping them bring it to fruition. There's rarely a shortage of work that needs to be done in a PSAP or a comm center. So if you see a need for a helping hand, then I encourage you to volunteer for those extra projects. You'll probably learn something and you'll raise your esteem in the eyes of your supervisors and of your teammates when they see you going out and putting yourself out there and learning more and volunteering. I encourage you to further your education. There are tons of PSAPs that invest in their employees' education with continuing education and with training opportunities. NINA puts out a fantastic annual conference and tons of classes. There are classes that you can find on the web. FEMA has a ton of free classes. Either way, and however you can, I encourage you to find those classes and to further your education, especially for those of us in after about the 2-year or 3-year mark in our industry. You've got the job under your belt, you've learned your policies and procedures, and you pick your head up and you start looking for extra challenges. Going to those extra classes, becoming a CTO, learning more about active shooter or other incidents that are low frequency, high priority. Anything you can do to further your education in this profession is going to raise your level of professionalism. It shows that you're interested in the profession. It shows that you're willing to invest in your own education, and it demonstrates that you're willing to further our profession by furthering yourself and improving yourself. If your agency pays for it, that's fantastic. If your agency isn't in a position to pay for it, I really encourage you to invest in your own education and invest in yourself and do as much as you can to pay for those classes and attend on your own. And speaking of your local chapter, I encourage you to get involved. Most states have a NINA chapter and most of them are active. I encourage you to reach out to them and get involved. The best way you can do that is start going to meetings and check out their website and find out what they're up to and find ways to be involved. When you're talking about improving your professionalism, it's truly not asking what NINA can do for you, but asking what you can do for your NINA chapter that's going to really demonstrate your professionalism and show people that you're interested and serious and committed to not only your agency, but to furthering your profession at a state or even a national level. I encourage you to get involved in national NINA as well. It's a great organization. But you knew that already or you wouldn't be here. All right, the hard stuff. Professionalism 301. I encourage you to avoid gossip and the rumor mill. And I put it in the advanced skills because it's really hard. It is really hard to sit in a room day after day, 10, 12, 8 hours a day, and not fall prey to the gossip and the rumor mill. And it's especially compounded when you add in our user agencies that we work with, each of which probably has their own gossip and rumor mill going. And yes, it's entertaining, and yes, it can be, endlessly diverting to talk about other people, but I encourage you to refrain from that as much as possible. Getting involved in gossip and the rumor mill is one surefire way to damage your reputation and to damage the professional image that you're working so hard to cultivate. So whether you have to change the subject, whether you have to divert the conversation, whether you can't divert the conversation, then start turning it toward a constructive conversation. In other words, if people are complaining about something that's going on in the center or an ongoing problem, start talking about how they can improve it and the steps that they can take to maybe change what they're concerned about. Turning the conversation toward productive conversation is a great way to avoid being pulled into that gossip and the rumor mill. And I know it's really hard, and I know that we're not going to be perfect at it every day, but the more that you can stay out of those conversations or turn those conversations into good, the better off you're going to be, and the more professional people are going to see you as. They're going to trust you. They're going to know that you've got their back. They're going to know that you would not talk about them behind their back, and they're going to start coming to you for advice and for questions. And that is a sign of a true professional, is when people start coming to you for advice and answering their questions. I know it's hard, but I know you can do it. Hold yourself to a high standard. When you go out into the world and when you come into your comm center and when you come into work, make sure you're holding yourself to a high professional standard. Everything we mentioned in 101 and 201, hold yourself to those standards. Remember that when you come to work, you are on stage. You're on stage for your callers, you're on stage for your responders, you're on stage for each other, and you're on stage for yourself. So that is a high standard, but if you remember that everyone's watching you all the time, that entire shift, then you have a higher chance to hold yourself to that standard and to say, you know what, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be the best telecommunicator I can be. I'm going to present myself well. I'm going to make sure that I know my policies and procedures, and I'm going to do it every single day. Are we going to manage to do it every single day? Of course not. I come to work sometimes and I don't want to be here, but reminding myself that I'm building an image and that I'm building myself as a telecommunicator and that I'm representing my agency helps me remember that, usually helps pull me out of my funk. Be a person of your word and make it count. If you tell someone you're going to do something, follow through and do it. If you encounter obstacles that you didn't expect along the way and you're going to be sidetracked or derailed, let people know and let them know when they can expect whatever it was you said you would do. If you promise to trade shifts with someone, make sure you follow through. If you promise a caller that you're going to do something, of course, make sure you follow through, and same for responders. The more you promise and follow through on your word, the higher your professionalism rises in your eyes and in everyone else's eyes as well. Make sure that what you promise to do counts. In other words, that you're working toward the greater good and the good of your agencies. You don't want to promise something and under-deliver, or promise something that you have no intention of delivering. So make sure that your word is your bond and that you are making it count every day. So benefits beyond the console. Everything we just talked about in the beginning, intermediate, and advanced skills, those are hard. And a lot of people don't come to work with intention, and they don't present themselves to the world with any kind of intention. And so they fall down on that professionalism. So true professionalism is rare. I show that we have about 80 people on this call, and if every single one of us went out and remembered to practice and work on those skills every day, that's 80 more people in the world displaying professionalism. But even so, we would be the rare ones. So I encourage you to be the rare ones, because that's going to stand out, and that's going to help you in your promotional desires. That's going to help you if you're looking for a job outside the industry. That's going to help you if you're looking to stay exactly where you are. But if you're professional, then people are going to notice you, and they're going to respect you, and they're going to ask you to help them with those projects, and they're going to ask you to do extra stuff, and they're going to look to you as a mentor. You'll become a mentor yourself. So I encourage you to do that for the simple fact that it's rare and people appreciate it when they see it. It also opens doors to promotion. When people see you showing up and putting in the hard work every day, they're going to notice you and they're going to remember you. So when you do go for promotion, if you're trying to be a CTO, if you want to be a supervisor, if you want to be a director, if you want to get involved at the national level with MENA, it's going to open those doors. People are going to see that you're a person of your word, that you dress professionally, that you conduct yourself correctly in public. And you will have an edge over all those people who did not show up with intention every day. Paves the way for those leadership positions. Even if you have no desire to become a formal leader, there are informal leaders in every PSAP and in every profession. So if you are one of those people who desires to lead the way and make the world a better place, and I know we all are, because that's why we got into the job in the first place, right? We wanted to help people. Professionalism paves the way for those leadership positions. It paves the way for you to be an example to the trainees coming in. It paves the way for you to help other people as they move in their own professional aspirations. And it helps pave the way in personal life. I don't know about you, I try to compartmentalize my personal and professional life. When I'm at work, I'm trying to focus on work, and when I'm at home, I try to focus on home. However, the more you professionalize your behavior at work, the more you'll professionalize your behavior at home. And I don't mean treating our kids and our spouses as coworkers in a professional manner. I mean treating people in general with respect and listening to their concerns And all the skills that we learn as far as being professional at work carries over, and it helps our home personal relationships and our friendships become richer and stronger and more trusting. So I hope I've made the case for professionalism, and I hope that I've given you some ideas on how you can professionalize your behavior. And I suspect for the vast majority of those of us on the call, I've just confirmed that what you're already doing is the right path to be taking. But I encourage you, if you have any questions at this time, to type them in.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. We have someone saying that the link wasn't working for the mentor board. If you went there as soon as Jennifer put it on the screen here, I know there was a problem with the redirect working correctly, but if you go to nina.org/mentor now, it should be working no problem if you'd like to sign up to be a mentee or a mentor. All right, other questions? As I said at the beginning of the broadcast, if you have your questions, please submit them through the GoToWebinar interface, or you can email me as well if you have anything that comes up after the webinar. You have a kind of lightning bolt saying, oh, I wish I had asked that. Please feel free. You can just email me, respond to the link to the webinar archive that'll contain the on-demand video of this webinar plus the slide deck. Respond to that, and we'll be happy to get you answers to any questions you may have. So while we wait for any questions to roll in, there was a comment someone had in regard to wearing a uniform to class. Someone had a question about kind of the perceived anti-police climate and whether it's better to just go business casual to class to avoid any potential incidents.
Yes, and I agree with that, and it really depends on what your agency requires. If you're uncomfortable wearing your uniform out in public, then I really, like Riley said, I encourage you to dress business casual or in a suit or polo and khakis. The bottom line is you want to make sure you're not that person that's wearing a t-shirt and ratty shorts to class, because people will remember you and your agency that way. So you want to put yourself forth as the best presentation possible. And that was a really good point. Thanks for bringing it up, Riley.
All right. Well, I don't see any other questions here, so if we can give it another minute, since I know we have some time here. Jennifer, if you want to flip forward, we can talk about some other stuff we have coming up.
Absolutely. Here we go.
Sure. As she mentioned earlier on, the annual conference coming up in Indianapolis this June, the 11th through the 16th. If you go to nina.org/nina2016, you'll get information about the amazing courses, workshops, breakouts, keynotes, kind of all the stuff you need to enhance your education and professionalism portfolio. Get ready to make those next steps in your career, become a leader on your team. Annual conference in June is a great place to do that. And of course, for updates on training and things like that, you can flip forward to our social slide, please, Jennifer. One more. Yeah, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, get more information about upcoming webinars, trainings, interesting articles to read. We do like to cover a lot of professional stuff and practical stuff that you can use on your downtime to kind of get some more content and benefits out of your NINA membership. So look for more information on our social feeds. All right, we have a question here. How do you deal with a long-term toxic dispatcher? If that person is a trainer or a superior to you, you know, how do you deal with a problem employee when that problem employee is above you on the food chain, I guess, is the kind of crux of the issue.
So my recommendation is, again, to conduct yourself always in a professional manner, because sometimes people, when confronted with their own toxic behavior, like to point out where you yourself have been behaving badly. And if you don't give them any feedback or any fodder for that, that's the first step. And the second step is, again, following that chain of command. So if you have concerns, then I encourage you to take that to that person's supervisor in a, closed door situation, so that you minimize the gossip and rumor mill and any public concern that they might have. But I encourage you to take that to their supervisor and share your concerns and say, I really want to succeed here, and this person's behavior is an impediment to that. Can you please help me work through that? And above all, I encourage you not to let that person's toxic behavior get to you. I know day in and day out that's a challenge, but keep your eyes focused on the fact that you're here to make a difference, and you're here for those positive reasons, and not let that person's behavior affect yours.
All right, very good. And Jennifer, if you want to flip to the Webinar Wednesday slide for a second.
Sure. There you go.
All right. If you like this webinar and haven't been part of one of our offerings before, welcome. We thank you for joining us. We do this the last Wednesday of every month. You can, for a small fee, you can get access to every Webinar Wednesday of the year. So that's 9 webinars, and of course, we can get you the archives of January, February, and March. We have Wellness in the PSAP coming up at the end of April. Registration for that will be open in just a little bit. And of course, you see the other webinars we have coming up, including media relations, 911 in the news, effective performance appraisals, and more. Obviously, if you can't join us for all, these are low-cost ways to provide training for the whole team. If you just want to purchase one of those, they're available a la carte at $50. And of course, that's for the whole team per connection, so you can get everyone into the training room to watch the webinar either live or on demand for that one low fee. And I also wanted to pitch this Friday's webinar coming up. Jennifer, do you have the name of that in front of you?
1 second, and I will. Sorry, I was just trying to think of it myself.
Got it here. Hold on. Yes. Okay. You want to talk more about career advancement? It's called From Dispatcher to Director: A Roadmap to Professional Advancement in 911. So a great tie-in to all the things that were discussed here today. It's going to be delivered by another Education Advisory Board member, Brian Tegmeyer, who did indeed go from dispatcher to director. So hear it from someone who's been there, how to kind of plot your route to career advancement. That's going to be an awesome webinar. I've seen them do that presentation live. It's definitely one not to miss. Again, 100% free in celebration of Telecommunicator Week. So if you go to the NINA website or check out the emails that you've gotten advertising these webinars or Telecommunicator Week, you can sign up there. I know we have a couple hundred people signed up for that webinar as well, so please join us for that. It's sure to be an exciting presentation. Jennifer, any last words before we close out the webinar here?
Yes, I noticed that Vicki asked for the presentation to be sent to her, and I know that we're happy to share, and that Chris will be sending this to everybody who participated. So you'll have the slide deck and the link.
Absolutely, I'll be getting that out to everyone in just a few minutes here.
And I want to thank everybody for coming, and again, happy Telecommunicator Week. Thank you for all that you do, and we really appreciate everything that you do for the citizens of this nation. I appreciate your help.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on Friday for our webinar at the end of the week.
All right. Thanks, Chris.